I'm DarkHero, and this is my story, Night Under the Stars.
When we were kids, my little brother Max and I used to have camping trips on the weekends. I say camping, but it was just us pitching a tent in our backyard. Our family owned a good bit of land, so we were far enough from the house to be secluded, yet close enough to feel safe. Every Saturday afternoon, we'd gather our supplies, which consisted of snacks and juice, sleeping bags, and a flashlight, and walk to our usual spot. Max was just 6 at the time, and I was 8, and we were extremely close. We would always look forward to our nights with just the boys. Our time together was filled with adventure, as we pretended to be explorers in the wilderness. One night we were setting up our campsite, and we started a bit late, but it was no issue. Max held the flashlight for me while I finished pitching the tent. We took in the sight of the setting sun while the crickets chirped and made our little hearts race. Once the tent was finished, we rushed inside and feasted on our snacks. We imagined that we were in the middle of a jungle, in search of a mysterious beast. Max and I took turns describing the features. "Big eyes!" Max shouted. I laughed as I added the next description. "How about razor-sharp teeth?" Max took a minute to decide, but eventually came up with "super tall." He was making fun of the monster, and we thought of stories about how he fought the terrible beast. Eventually, we both got sleepy, despite all the sugar we just ate. We clicked the flashlight off and settled into our sleeping bags. We told each other good night and soon drifted off to sleep. Not too long afterwards, I awoke. I was feeling groggy and let out a yawn. Everything was pitch black. I called out to Max, but was met with silence. Then I noticed how quiet it actually was at that moment. The normal sounds of being outside, like the crickets chirping, were completely gone. I slowly got up and felt through the darkness. I finally found the flashlight and I clicked it to life. My heart sank when I saw that Max's sleeping bag was completely empty. "Max! Max!" I called out. Still nothing. I crawled out of the tent and my head bumped into something. I shone the light forward to find Max standing right outside the tent. I thought I'd feel at ease, but something still didn't feel right. It was as if something grabbed my heart as soon as I got out of the tent. I cautiously got up to my feet and stood next to Max. I wanted to ask him if he was okay, but my chest tightened. My body already knew that we were both in danger. Max just stood there, completely frozen, and I followed his gaze to something in the distance. Despite how dark it was, I could see the shape of 2 white eyes staring at us. The eyes were so bright and vivid despite the absolute darkness of the night. The eyes were unmoving. And so were we as we stared back. Tears began to stream down my face, and I noticed that Max was crying too. I wanted to tell him that everything was going to be okay, but this fear that wrapped around us was choking me. The eyes began to move towards us. Again, I wanted to move, but I was paralyzed. I tried to lift my arm up, but it was shaking so badly. Eventually, I was able to find the strength to lift the flashlight towards the eyes. The light began to flicker as it got close to whatever this thing was. I was able to finally focus the light and found something truly horrifying. Standing a few feet away from us was the figure of something standing 7 feet tall upon 2 feet. It had large black eyes and mandibles for a mouth. It looked like a massive praying mantis. The light continued to flicker until the bulb popped. We stood there in the dark silence until Max let out a horrifying scream. I wanted to pull him back into the tent and try to protect him, but before I could react, I felt something vibrate behind my eyes. The pain was so immense that I fell back, crashing into the tent, and I heard Max's body thud right after me. The vibrating sensation began to spread to the rest of my head, and before I knew it, I blacked out. Eventually, I awoke, and I was so relieved to see that it was morning. I quickly looked over to see that Max was also waking up. We looked at each other for a moment, and without a word, we packed our things up and ran back home. I'm not sure what we saw. I could barely describe it, to be honest. All I know is that ever since then, we stopped going camping. Max and I have never talked about it since then, till recently. He showed me an article about something called Mantis Man, and I wanted to vomit when I saw the picture that someone drew. I told him to never show it to me again. I grabbed Max by the shoulders and I told him to never, ever talk about it again.